So tonight our group is discussing case studies 5 and 6. Scenario 5's topic was empowerment. And first question, what type of assessments can you create or use to improve empowerment at your school? I got thoughts on assessments to improve empowerment.
My thought is that self-assessment of teachers' affects towards empowerment and what they felt strongly about could be used for this. It could be created specifically for the goals of the school, or something a little more generic found online, but just to get a gauge at what the teachers felt empowered to do could really help in placing them in the right places where they would be most effective.
And I pretty much said something similar to you, Danny. I just said I would create a needs assessment to help determine what the needs are. And I would have, since they talked about the principal having a panel of teachers, I would have those teachers that I meet with monthly to help create the assessments, so that it would not only be my information, but will be some of theirs as well.
Another thing I just thought about too was, with the teachers having some sort of feeling about them not wanting more put on their plate, if all the teachers were given a little chunk to do and spread the wealth with all of them, so using their self-assessment to help make it so that each person got a little bit instead of the same 3 or 4 people doing everything, that I think that would be helpful for that school as well.
I like the idea of using a staff survey. So, and maybe even anonymously, so that the staff has their say, but so they feel so they feel more empowered to tell exactly what they think. Does that make sense?
Yeah, I see that.
Yeah, so that you would have some more genuine without maybe a threat of a repercussion or something like that. Mm-hmm.
That's a good point.
So how can you make fast decisions concerning what's best for your students? And I'll jump on that saying there's a certain part of being in tune with your culture and climate and having that solid working relationship where, you don't always have time to disaggregate data and spend days making pie charts. You have to make a decision and throw something out there. And there's sort of having that good working relationship with teachers and even empowering teachers to make that decision instead of you. There's a component of that there too as well.
And I think sometimes that like speed in decision making comes with experience and being able to know your students.
So how oh, sorry, Danny.
I was just going to add on to that with if your teachers if you put your teachers in charge of being able to look at their data, like your grade teams, and giving them that ownership of that, they can begin to make those decisions, and it can be a way to empower them in their classrooms with their students. And also, it wouldn't take that long. It would be a quick decision to help increase the success of the students.
Mm-hmm. And that feeds directly into the next question of how can you devote more time to your teachers in order to create empowerment?
I said you could have check-ins with teachers, like principal check-ins, just to kind of help gauge where the teachers are and help determine their needs and if they have concerns. And just being more visible out in the schools and not necessarily just held up in your office all day. I think you need to, as principals, have like a mobile office. You need to be out in the school, in the classrooms to really know what's going on.
And I think that it doesn't really say specifically, but one of the best things I think is of allowing teachers to have time during the school day to meet and get things done. I, as a teacher, appreciate not having to stay after school for every single meeting. So I know that the teachers would appreciate that, that time to actually do something productive in the school.
And mine kind of goes along with what you said, Danny. I think that very effective PLCs, which our PLCs meet during the day, but very effective PLCs where everyone has a voice allows teachers to feel empowered. And making sure that the PLCs are small enough so that everyone is able to participate.
Yeah. Because sometimes you get those loud voices that always make the decisions and others don't get a chance to. So that is an important aspect.
Mm-hmm. All right. Any more comments on scenario number 5? Now, if you guys are good, we'll move on to scenario 6, leadership through cultural development. How can you create more professional development and staff reflection to promote leadership through cultural development?
This reminded me of when my first years teaching were at a school that was new. It hadn't been around very long, and they were still developing the cultural, the norms, the rules, how things were going. And having those, we would have PLCs, not PLCs, grade level meetings at that time, once a week in the morning before school started to talk about, okay, what kinds of things are important to us as the teachers that we want to have in our school. And we really, through that building of that culture and what we wanted our school and our students to look like, helped us to bond and helped our morale as well.
When I read this question, it reminded me of a principal I worked for who had made developing school culture her personal development goal for that year. And she was trying to do so by having culture development activities, like required after school cookouts for the faculty. And that was how she was going to develop culture. We had required social events after school.
Wow.
Okay.
I was like, well,
How did that go over?
yeah, that was not received very well. While the food was, of course, appreciated, it was developing the wrong sort of culture. It was a backfire kind of effort, for sure.
Yeah, because some of the things that I'm sorry.
Go ahead.
I was going to say, some of the things that we worked to figure out was what sort of writing program did we want? What sort of, are we going to use Zane or Blozer for the students' handwriting? Like those kinds of things, building a curriculum culture, but not necessarily. That culture helped our congenial relationship culture, but it wasn't anything like having to cook out after school and being mandatory.
Yeah, that goes back to having that shared vision and goal and purpose. The other stuff falls in line behind that when you're working together. You can't really force that.
Exactly.
I think, and this is something we're trying to work through with our school. And I don't know that it promotes leadership, but it does promote cultural development, where you look outside of your school for trainings or, workshops, looking through NCAE to help teach about culture. I don't know, I may be completely off with that. But sometimes you do have to look outside your school. And then thinking about promoting leadership, I am in a school where I don't live in the area. So I am not privy to the culture of that area. I'm getting there, but I've only been there, a year and a half. So I think being able to be together with teachers or people who are from that area, does that make sense? And you're able to learn about the culture of that area from others, and they're able to show their leadership through that. Does that make sense?
I think I get what you're saying. Like, some teachers who have been living there for years and years and years already sort of know everybody and everything that's going on.
Exactly.
They kind of prove themselves as leaders. Like, if a situation happens, they can give you background as to why certain things are happening, because, maybe there was a death in the family, or maybe there was, something that happened that we wouldn't know about, that they, because they live in that community, would know.
Right.
So how can you develop emerging leaders within your school?
I pretty much said just determine who the leaders are first in the school, or potential leaders. Sometimes as principals, you have to draw the leader out, and others, sometimes teachers don't even know that they could be good leaders, and it's the principal's job to kind of cultivate that leadership in them by just giving them various leadership roles.
Yeah.
I think you need to also look at the strengths of the teachers, like what they can be leaders in. Not every teacher is going to be a leader in math, but you've got a certain few that will be.
Right.
So I think you've got to really know your staff and be able to find those strengths and pull those out.
And to piggyback on that, once you figure out what they might have a strength in, you need to be able to cultivate those strengths. So provide, send them to trainings and give them PD to help them to build those strengths, and come back and share that with your school.
So how could this principle improve cultural leadership during classroom observations?
And that was the one I kind of struggled with a little bit. What I did say is that the principal has to know first the shared vision and goal for the school, and that the teachers have to know it, as well as the students, parents, and kind of the whole school community. And just interacting with teachers and students, principal needs to interact with teachers and students. And again, I keep saying get out of the office. The principal needs to be out in the school, knowing the culture and what's actually going on in the school.
Mm-hmm. And I think through those observations, and once you go back and do your reflections as the principal on what you've seen in that classroom, you're thinking about critically where you can take this teacher, where you can push them to the next level, and how what they are doing now can help to improve the overall culture of the school, how they can be a leader in that school with what it is that you're seeing in their classroom.
Yeah, I agree with that. I took it as once you do that evaluation or walkthrough and you see the examples of what they're doing that would be a best practice, can you approach that person and say, I really enjoyed seeing this. Would you be willing to do a teach out on this? Or would you be willing to mentor one or two individuals who may not be as strong with that particular skill or best practice? So that's how I thought you could take an observation and use it to sort of cultivate leadership.
Yeah. And you know, thinking about that just now made me think about, I have a couple of teachers that in my position I work with very closely with beginning teachers, and I have a couple that are struggling, but they have some good points, and I could help them by taking the thing that they're doing that's good and having them share that so that they can feel empowered to even do better in other areas where they're having more trouble with.
That's good, Danny.
Any other comments on case study number 6? All right, then we'll close it out. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.